What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to go over Toy Story 4. Came out last week, but I watched it on opening night, but then I had 2 exams this week that were really big in medical school, so I studied for them, I finished them, and now we're going to go over my thoughts, review, reaction, everything. I'm going to go over the same 3 things I do in all of these reviews, which are the stuff that I thought were really awesome. I've titled them To Infinity and Beyond. The parts that I thought might have needed a little bit more work, which I've titled There's a Snake in My Boot. Alternative title is You Are a Ploy! And then the final part is, because we thought Toy Story 3 was such a perfect conclusion, Toy Story 4 surprised us, we're going to talk about Toy Story 3 versus Toy Story 4 as the final conclusion to this franchise, and I've titled that part, You've Gotta End at 3. I like those. You probably already know my thoughts about that, but you will be surprised. Let's talk about it. Start at the very beginning, which is things that surprised me. We started off with a flashback scene to contextualize what happened with Bo, and it was in that moment that they kind of show off their animation, because it is so breathtaking to see Woody and Bo under the van with the rain falling in the background. It's just, they look so realistic. It is unreal. The comedic parts of like the high five bit with the army guys, as well as Ducky and Buddy with the grandma, like whole key thing. All that stuff was really good and so well done. So I have to say that this was the best comedic elements of the entire franchise. This movie is full of feels, and the moment that I cried the most at was when Gabby saw the girl who was lost. I lost it. I literally could not even contain myself, and I was just full, like, ugly crying, because there's like such a warm place in my heart for kids who are lost in like a figurative and literal way, and to see the amount of compassion that Gabby was able to show her, and as well as giving her peace and the courage to go talk to the police officer, was just like all the right feels. So A+, Pixar, A+. That was one of the highlights of your entire company. That was such a well done scene. Forky, who is actually a really awesome character. I love Forky so much. He's so funny. At the beginning you're just like, okay, this guy's literally the most wild character to have ever been on screen, and by the end you're just like, oh, he's just like, he's learning. And then at the very end they introduce that new utensil, and that new utensil's like, how are we alive? And he looks at her, he's like, I have no idea. And it's so funny, because I bet everyone was thinking that, like, can Bonnie just bring things to life? Oh, it was just so funny. The thing that I really love about Toy Story 4 specifically is that they made this entire thing so perfectly knit together. There are parts that are set up with like one line in the very beginning, and parts that happen in the middle with like high fives and stuff, but at the very end of the entire movie, at the very end of the credits, they finally do everything to tie the whole thing together and let you know, we understand the story, we know what we left hanging for you guys, and they finally like sealed it all together with a bow. So that's what I really appreciated. It was like an attention to detail that you don't normally get in movies, and it was a closure that you really felt they wanted us to have as an audience. But, and this is a massive but, Toy Story 4 was exceptionally awesome, but it wasn't satisfactory. And what do I mean by that? I mean that Toy Story 3 gave us an ending that allowed us to move on. It was, yes, it was a sad ending, but it was also very happy, because we realized, oh, this is a moment for all the toys to just be passed on to a new generation. And as a generation that grew up with Toy Story, we're like, oh, that's what this is about. We get it. We can say goodbye. Wonderful. Goodbye. And then they're like, JK, let's open the box again. We're like, oh, okay, we're opening the box. And then they're like, now we're gonna close the box, but instead of 1 box, we have 2 boxes. There's a Woody and Bo box, and there's a Buzz and the Gang box, and we're gonna separate them forever. That's the end of our story. And everyone's like, no, they need to be together. No, they like need to be together, right? They just like need to be together because they're friends. Did you see the way they hugged at the end? Like Bo and Woody like twirl hug. That was fine. That's like, you know, friendship. That's like platonic. But did you see the way that Woody and Buzz hug? That's real friendship right there. Like they hugged and they squeezed even harder, and then they rested their necks on each other. I was like, okay, but why do you have to say bye though? You know? Anyway, okay, getting a little teary-eyed. Let's see what I wrote in my notes so we don't lose track here. I will say, did anyone else notice that Woody just seemed like he was bigger? Like the toys seemed bigger in relation to their prior selves. Like I always felt Woody was like this tall in prior movies, and in this movie he was like this tall. I couldn't tell if it was just him like contrasted with the background, or the animation team really did make Woody and the other toys much larger. That was something I noticed. Also, side note, I only saw 20 and 30-something-year-olds in my theater, so props to us for keeping our inner children alive. Because people could say that Disney makes like kids movies, but I don't think that's a thing anymore, because my audience was very excited for the Trolls 2 trailer that we saw, as well as the Angry Birds 2 trailer. So I think we're just building a new generation of what it means to be adult. An adult. Adulting. Adults. bigger kids. Toy Story 4, aside from everything I'm gonna say about it, it is such a phenomenal movie. You have to watch it. It is exceptionally done. The need for Toy Story 4 when Toy Story 3 already exists is where my main contention is. I really only have two issues with this movie. One, there was a pacing issue in the beginning. Until we meet Bo, it felt like the story was just rushing along, like, oh, this is happening, Forky's in the story, now we're gonna take Forky on an RV, and we're gonna do all this, and this is, oh, and here's Bo. And then it like obtained a normal pace throughout the rest of the movie, but up until that part of just like racing and just like, this is what happened to Bo, and just moving along. My second issue is the ending. Now the ending is heart-wrenching. It made me cry at like 90% of what the furnace scene did from Toy Story 3, which is like actually saying something. I'm not mad about the ending, but the ending makes you feel like, why'd they do this when they had such a perfect ending to Toy Story 3? They built it up in a way that it doesn't even match Toy Story 3, because in 3, it's sad, but it ends on a happy note. Yes, Andy doesn't have the toys anymore, but he moves on. He's like, oh, it's best that the toys go to someone else who will give them a life and stories and all this stuff. So we're like, we're supposed to move on. We get it. And the ending of Toy Story 4, like, don't get me wrong, Toy Story 4 is a phenomenal movie. I highly recommend you watch it. It's just the ending. Toy Story 3 was a happy sad. This is just like a sad sad, or like an empty sad. You don't know where the story's gonna go, and like the final shot zooming out with Woody and Bo on the carousel, and it's just zooming out and they're just smiling into the distance. And we're like, at least for me, when I saw that, I thought, this is not an appropriate ending. This is a beginning of Woody's life there with Bo, as well as the life that Buzz and the rest of the toys are going to have with Bonnie. So how are we ending it here? If anything, this gives me a deeper desire to want to watch a Toy Story 5 to see like some closure. What's going to happen with all these toys? But they can't really have a Toy Story 5 because they're going to have to either focus on Woody and Bo or Buzz and the gang, or they're going to bring them back together, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of Toy Story 4. But if Toy Story 4 really is the ending, it's such an empty ending because it's like a beginning. We don't really know where that's going to go, and the point of the Toy Story 3 ending was that we finally thought, oh, we saw the storyline with Andy. Now we can just assume they're gonna have a similar one with Bonnie. And that's it. It's just, everyone moved on and we were ready to let go. Rex, Ham, Slinky Dog, Mr. and Mrs. Potato literally did nothing the entire movie. They were either in Bonnie's room or the RV, and they did nothing to progress the plot except for the ending when they just said goodbye. Like, everyone was like totally chill with Woody leaving. They're like, what? He's leaving? All right, bye. Or like when they saw Bo, they're like, oh, hey, we haven't seen you in a whole movie, but like, deuces. We'll just like catch up later. Your people call my people. Meanwhile, they forget they don't have cell phones. The new characters, Duke Kaboom, Ducky, Bunny, Minnie, Cop, Lady, Forky, they're all so great, and they felt that they were part of the franchise for much longer than just one movie. I will say though that the one thing that I wasn't super happy about is an attempt to spend more time with these new characters and to get to know them. We lost time with the OG characters that we've grown to love, which, you know, you shouldn't have to sacrifice so much of your original cast to like support new characters, especially if this is the ending movie. I just didn't feel that Woody's connection with Bo was strong enough for him to like abandon his family to just be with her forever. That's the part that I was like really uncomfortable with, because we know how much he's been with his fellow toys and he sacrificed to be with them, and he was okay with leaving Andy to be with Bonnie and the gang, and now it's just like, no, actually, if Bo was part of the picture, I would have left Andy, you guys, Bonnie, all you for Bo. And it's like, well, I just don't feel that that's in character. They spent so much of the movie on Woody that for them to end it like that, it's like, well, I'd rather have seen like what the rest of the gang was doing. We're gonna focus on Woody, and we're gonna make him do some very out of character things, which is not necessarily how you do character development. You have to make them act, like, get them to the point that they would behave that way. But I didn't feel that he was able to get to that point, because yes, he wants to be with Bo and rescue her, but he was never able to like confront his friends and then be like, well, how dare you abandon us? Like, for him to have that kind of discussion. It was just like, we'll have him be with her the entire time, so when he sees them, he just says bye and then that's it. But like, a in-character thing would be for him to have to face his friends and then be like, so you're gonna pick her over us? And then him have to find a way to resolve that tension. Right now, there's no resolve for that, and we have to think about what the resolve is gonna be. Like, them on the way, on the RV on the way home, they're gonna have to sit down and be like, so he's not coming back? Like, so the jerk just left us after 14 years? How dare he? How dare he? That's what we have to now think about, which is just an unfair thing to do to an audience, especially if it's coming from Pixar, who are so good at all their movies. So it makes me think that they have to do a Toy Story 5. And something else that this movie did that was different from other prior Toy Story movies, and even I think other Disney movies, other animation movies, is the creepy factor was like on max. Like, someone like accidentally hit the switch, was like, oh, let's make it very creepy. To the point where I was like curling up in my seat, like, this is really creepy. Those mannequin ventriloquy dolls are absolutely terrifying. That's the stuff that gives me nightmares. The way they just walk around like, oh no. They're so weird. And then like Gabby, like, oh, hi. Oh, you can't leave our store.
I'm gonna kill you.
But then like by the end you're like, oh, okay, they're just misunderstood. Also Gabby just wanting to use them to leave the shop, and then they're just like, bye. I don't know. Seems kind of manipulative from her. Also, let's talk about Gabby. Really cool villain. Also, there's something that, man, so many thoughts. Disney really has not committed to an actual villain, and I think maybe 6 movies right now. Every kind of like, I wanted to make a whole video about it, about how one of the good characters that you're introduced to in the beginning of the movie is either the villain or one of the villains you're introduced to becomes a main character good guy, and Gabby was one of those things, and you could tell, at least I was able to predict that the way Gabby was talking to Woody, there was this almost a sincerity to her voice, and I was like, oh, Woody's gonna end up moving on in his like own, you know, character development and give her his voice box. But the way that it was handled was really manipulative, and it's actually something that I would add to the whole like switching and making things better in the movie, is I would have switched the way that she met with Woody to actually confirm the like voice box surgery. And Shirley Doll's behind her. She like stepped forward and she said, oh, I really just want an opportunity like you've had an opportunity. And it was a very touching speech, and it made you realize, oh, she's not the villain, she's just, you know, longing for a child. But the thing that I would have switched, and it's just a small little thing, is I would have had Gabby give Forky back to Woody before the surgery. Just like, you know, as she's talking to him, be like, I'm not like bad, I just want a chance with a kid. And then she'd be like lean back and be like, Forky, like, he's right here. I didn't harm him, and I don't want to harm him. I just wish, and she like lets him go, and she like looks at Woody. I just wish I could have that opportunity. And then she starts walking away, and then Woody like sees Forky, and Forky's like, let's go home. And Woody looks back, and he's like, Gabby. And then we just assume what's gonna happen. But the way it was handled was kind of creepy, because she only gave Forky to Gabby after the surgery was completed, which kind of seems very manipulative, and I don't think that's the right message we should be giving to kids or anyone, because it could have easily been switched to be better, and that's one thing I would have switched to be better in the movie. Another thing I would have switched to be better in the movie is the ending. I don't really like the zoom out on the carousel, because that made me think, what's going to happen with this storyline and this storyline? This seems like not the ending of a franchise, it seems like the beginning of a TV series, which... Oh, are they going to put this on Disney Plus? Oh, maybe that's why it ended like that. But if they wanted to end it with the movie, my solution would have been to have all the kids play one final time in the sandbox with Bonnie there. Bonnie could have brought all her toys, and all the kids could have came and played, and then she would have realized the beauty and the joy that she gets from sharing her toys, and so she would have shared them all around, and the toys would have been so happy that each of them can get a time in the spotlight, versus like half the squad, more than half the squad, being limited to the RV with like one-liners, and then Woody gets the shining light this whole movie with Bo, who was absent the entire last movie, and Buzz is just used for comic relief. They could have had just like a sandpit time when every toy could have been loved and cherished, and the fact that they are a team of toys could have been highlighted in the beauty of sharing, versus like the need for separating and picking a girlfriend over your best friend, and the fact that no toy left behind just completely meant nothing to Woody by the end, because he left 50,000 toys after he was friends with for 14 years and was like, you know what, I'm gonna pick Bo because I want a new sense of purpose. Little does he know that Bo has been living by herself this entire time, and she's a self-independent woman, and she can take care of herself, and she's actually the leader of her clan. So Woody's gonna end up being relegated to the side anyway. So, homeboy. Also, back to the creep factor, Woody was V-creepy in this movie. Like, his way of trying to make sure that Bonnie was safe, especially that one scene where she's in bed, and then he's trying to get Forky to go in bed with her, and then Forky doesn't want to go, and she ends up grabbing Woody accidentally, and he's just like, and he starts looking at Bonnie, he's like, unnecessarily creepy. It was just done a little bit too much. As for Woody, this is his movie, no doubt. No Toy Left Behind is chivalrous, but slowly becomes questionable even by the other toys in the movie, because they even told him to his face, and you think it's going to be a learning point for him, but it doesn't. Like, Buzz told him no toy left behind, and then he jokes and he's like, he just left me behind. And everyone laughs, but it's kind of true. If they wanted to explore what happened with Bo's life, and I was telling my friend this, I think this could have been a short. Like, Bo's life, or Bo's big day. I don't know, something like that, where they could have just easily just explored what happened to Bo. They could have introduced all these side characters that she got to know. It would have been like a nice 10, 15 minute thing where like, oh, that's what happened to her. Good, glad she's taking care of herself. But they use this movie to introduce like 10 new characters, Ducky, Bunny, the little mini cop, Duke Kaboom, so many new characters, and you're just like, I'm glad we met them, but like we're never gonna see them again. So that's why 3 was so perfect, because you met like a couple new characters, but it was like a grand conclusion, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. They're all gonna go with Bonnie. Now it's like, here are a bunch of new characters, and we're gonna split them up. And especially the 2 title leads of this entire franchise. Which, like, I don't think Pixar messes up this seems like either a missed opportunity, or they have bigger plans to make this a TV show, or they have bigger plans to make this a Toy Story 5, but if they make Toy Story 5, I really don't see how they're going to make a Toy Story 5 that only focuses on Woody, or only focuses on Buzz. They would have to make one, and if they do that, that'd be like really uncomfortable. But if they want to make a Toy Story 5 where they bring them both back together, then they're going to completely just, you know, cancel all that they did in Toy Story 4. So why have this movie? You know how some songs end and they feel like they haven't resolved yet? Like and you're just like, please hit the last note so we could feel a sense of closure. And that's what this movie was. It was like, ding, it ended on that. Instead of ding, ding, which Toy Story 3 ended on the dun, so we're like, oh, we can let it go. Now it's like, let it go. They opened it up, and it doesn't feel like it resolved, even though it's such a perfect masterpiece of a movie. It's so good. It is such a funny movie. I loved it. It's just the one thing that's holding it back is, if this were a standalone, I'd say that this is one of my favorite movies I've ever watched in my life. It's just not a satisfying conclusion to the entire Toy Story franchise, because Toy Story 3 was perfect, and Toy Story 4 was a perfect movie, but not a perfect end to Toy Story. So final rating of the movie, this movie standalone, I would say is a 9.2. However, in the context of the entire Toy Story franchise, this whole toy story, it ends at like an 8.4, because Toy Story 3 was so perfect, and like, this movie was such a great movie. It's just, it doesn't close off the story well. So if they make a Toy Story 5, and in Toy Story 5 they find some way to bring them back organically, all the toys, and they end on a really powerful way, which is what I'm hoping they do, because I don't want them to end this way, because this is such an empty, sour way to end a fantastic franchise. Or if they're gonna make this like a TV show, then I would increase this story to be like a 9.2, which is what it is deserving of as a standalone movie. What did you think about this movie? If you enjoyed it, tell me why down below, and if you did not, tell me why not down below. And as always, be safe, be strong, be swag. God bless you, and I will see you in the next video. You can watch some more right now. Bye! I really love this part. This is, coming up with the names for the 3 sections is honestly the best part.
No!
Yes, I, Canada. To infinity and beyond.